Hello and welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into one of the most incredible and maybe underrated systems in your entire body. It's the one that lets you walk, talk, smile, and even just sit upright. We're talking about your muscular system, the amazing biological motors that literally power your every single move.
So to kick things off, just wrap your head around this number. Your muscles make up about 40% of your total body weight. That's a massive amount. It's easy to think of them as just, well, meat, but that's not the right picture. You should really think of them as this huge, interconnected network of powerful engines, all primed and ready to go at a moment's notice.
You know, even the name itself is kind of fun. The word muscle actually comes from the Latin musculus, which means little mouse. So why a mouse? Well, the story goes that ancient Romans thought the ripple of a flexing bicep looked just like a little mouse scurrying around under the skin. You can totally see it, right? Okay, so what is a muscle, really? At its most basic level, it's a contractile tissue. That's a fancy way of saying its one and only job is to shorten, to pull. That simple little action is what moves your entire skeleton, and it's even what keeps your internal organs working. That phrase, motors of the body, that's the absolute best way to think about them, and it's really the theme for our whole explainer today.
Now, if we really want to understand how these motors work, we've got to zoom in, like way in. We're about to go on a little journey, starting with a whole muscle that you can see and feel, and taking it all the way down to the tiny, microscopic parts that actually create the force.
So let's start at the biggest level, with something we all know, a single skeletal muscle, like your bicep. Believe it or not, that's an entire organ, all neatly packaged and hooked up to your bones. But if you were to look inside, you'd see it's not just one solid block. No, it's actually organized into smaller bundles, and these are called fascicles. The best way to picture this is to think of a really thick electrical cable. The fascicles are like the smaller insulated wires that are all bundled together inside that main cable. So, what's inside one of those wires?
We zoom in again, and inside each of those fascicles, we finally get to them, the individual muscle fibers. These are the actual cells of the muscle. And it's right here at the cellular level that all the magic happens. This is where the engine actually fires. So, what's holding this whole structure together? Well, remember that cable analogy? There are these layers of connective tissue that act like sheathing at every single level. You've got one layer wrapping the entire muscle, another wrapping each bundle of fibers, and then a super delicate one wrapping every single fiber. It's this brilliant design that gives it structure, but it also lets all those fibers pull together as one unit and creates pathways for nerves and blood to get where they need to go.
Okay, get ready, because now we're going even deeper. We're going past the cell itself to the submicroscopic level. We are finally going to see the engine that powers this entire system.
And this leads us to the big question, right? How can these tiny, hair-like fibers possibly work together to create enough force to lift something heavy or throw a ball or just get you out of bed in the morning? Well, the answer is just a beautiful piece of biological engineering.
Inside each fiber, we find even smaller strands called myofibrils, and these are built from two key proteins. Think of them as the two main characters in our story, a thick filament called myosin and a thin one called actin. These two are the absolute stars of the show.
And here it is, the secret to how it all works. It's called the sliding filament theory. When your brain sends the signal to contract, the thick myosin filaments literally grab onto the thin actin filaments and pull them inward. It's like a huge game of tug-of-war. Now, what's key here is that the proteins themselves don't actually get shorter. They just slide past one another. That sliding action is what shortens the whole muscle cell. Now multiply that tiny action by millions of fibers all at once, and bam, you get powerful, coordinated movement.
Okay, so now that we've seen how the engine is built, let's zoom back out. Because it turns out the body has created different models of these motors, and each one is specially designed for a completely different job.
Yeah, there isn't just one type of muscle. There are three main types. First, you've got the skeletal muscles that we've been talking about. Those are the voluntary ones you use to move around. Then there's cardiac muscle. That's the incredibly powerful, involuntary motor that's found only in the wall of your heart. And finally, there's smooth muscle. That's the silent, involuntary workhorse that lines your stomach, your blood vessels,
all your internal organs.
And even within those skeletal muscles, you've got more specialization. You have slow twitch fibers. They're packed with blood supply, which makes them super resistant to getting tired. They're built for endurance. Think long-distance running or just holding your posture all day. On the other hand, you have fast twitch fibers. These guys contract with incredible speed and power, but they burn out fast. They're your sprinters, your heavy lifters, and most of your muscles are actually a unique blend of both.
All right, one last crucial point. None of these motors ever work alone. Meaningful movement is never just one muscle doing its thing. It's always a complex, coordinated dance, a perfect example of teamwork. Just think about bending your arm at the elbow. To do that, your bicep has to contract and pull. But for that to even be possible, the muscle on the other side, your tricep, has to relax and get longer. Then, to straighten your arm back out, they instantly swap roles. Every single move you make is this perfectly controlled, beautiful balancing act between these opposing muscle groups.
So, when you put it all together, from those microscopic proteins sliding past each other, to the different types of muscle, to the teamwork, your body is constantly conducting this incredible symphony of tiny engines. Every breath you take, every blink of your eye, every single heartbeat, it all depends on this system. Which really just leaves us with one final thought. Knowing all the amazing potential that's packed inside these fibers, what will you choose to power with your